Hello, hello, everyone. We're
Hello,
gonna.
day one, TSD Virtual in the wraps, just about.
There we go. This special episode of the School Transportation Nation podcast is being broadcast live from the STN headquarters in Torrance, California. We have TSD Virtual kicked off live today. We are November 9th through the 11th, and really exciting day to start off. This episode is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software, and Zonar, our friends at Zonar are doing technology. We have a special thanks to our diamond sponsors, REI and Q Strength Sherlock of the TSD Virtual. I have my co-host, Mr. Ryan Gray.
Howdy,
Excellent,
Tony. Thank you.
Ryan. Glad you could be here. You've done a great job with the content thus far at the conference. Really enjoying it so much. Temple Grandin. Wow, just a really special keynote this morning.
Yeah, she had a lot of great insights that we knew she was going to share. I mean, her mind is just on another level with everything that she's been able to accomplish in her 73 years of life. It's just really amazing that, being on the spectrum of autism as she is, she grew up without any of the protections that we have now federally and state-wise. So it was really interesting to hear her insights about living with autism, how that manifests itself, and a lot of really good ideas about what education and transportation can do to better serve those kids.
Yeah, what jumped out to me too. I mean, Temple was our opening keynote today at TSD Virtual, and she really didn't disappoint. I mean, she really gave us a real world kind of what she went through and tips and tricks. I think to really address how transporters can really affect the quality of the ride for the students that they transport. And, one of my big takeaways was, focusing in on what the child can do, not what they can't do. That really jumped out to me big time. And I think that we get so caught up in the negative and the actual disability or the special need itself that we just have to stop and pause and ask ourselves for a second, what does that look like? And reasonably, whenever you're transporting kids, there's challenges. I mean, simply said, there are challenges that you guys face every day. And the plethora of experts that are on the TSD virtual platform are really, really here to help support you. I was sitting in a session here towards the end of the day with Patrick Mulick, and there were some really interesting takeaways, I think, in terms of how do the administrators work with transportation. And it was brought up in the conversation where the children, it really affected them. They made that association to the bus as being an extension of the classroom. And as that goes, there are big challenges when a child's day is disrupted. And I think bringing it back, Temple said, it's that preparing them, warning them, making them aware of the change, which is so important. And when you face these different challenges of dealing with preparing these kids or warning them, sometimes you get so caught up in your daily job that we forget, hey, you gotta explain to the kid, or you have to leverage maybe video content, like it was brought up as a question with regards to evacuations on the school bus, an evacuation drill, but preparing the child by showing them a video of what an evacuation drill would look like. So those are some of my big takeaways. And I think that, Ryan, you really touched on a lot of really great questions that people had for Temple. And I wanted to kind of see what your big takeaways were.
I think that we talk about it a lot. It's not servicing the disability, but servicing the student and getting to know the student. She talked a lot about understanding what the children, what their not only their just their needs, but what are their likes and dislikes in life. What do they want to do? She talked a lot about travel training and the whole, utilizing transportation and the entire educational experience for life training. That's a big tenet of IDEA, as we all know. And I think those are some of the things we forget about. We forget about mainstreaming students, which is going to be a topic that's going to be discussed this week during TSD Virtual. Mainstreaming students when we can mainstream them. Students who maybe are in wheelchairs, but they're able to transfer to a seat. These are all things, I mean, curb to curb service at a certain point, is it best to move the kid away from curb to curb or door to door service and have them start walking to the end of the driveway, giving them goals. You're talking about advising students and giving them, giving them advance notice of COVID-19, but also working with the families and the students to give them advance notice of what not only transportation, but education expects of the student. You know, you hit on it, Tony, a second ago, that we talk so much about school bus as an extension of the classroom. Well, to really be in that same educational realm, student transporters really do have to think like educators and not just as student transporters. I don't like to use that word just, because transportation is obviously such a responsibility and a big one. And there's so much that goes into it, but also thinking about how does transportation link in with the entire student's experience, their educational career. Speaking of careers, she talked about, and also to what students want to do with their lives, or maybe they don't know what they want to do with their lives. You know, the lack of trades that are taught in the schools now. And she talked about her own experience and many of the experiences of engineers and IT professionals and scientists that she's worked with for decades, who she thinks, and she knows some of them are, and she thinks others are as well, on the spectrum. She coined the term, you know, the spectrum can go all the way from kind of like the weird kids, kind of the nerdy kids, all the way to nonverbal. Maybe they're immobile, they have other health issues on top of their autism condition, but utilizing transportation to help train these students to find their next chapter in life, if you will. One of our attendees mentioned in the chat, Carlos Chicas from Capistrano Unified School District in Southern California, said one of his best mechanics in his shop is on the spectrum. And that was the point that Temple made, was that there is so much brilliance out there, but if we don't understand what autism is and don't take time to understand the students, we can miss out on a lot of opportunities. And certainly there's a lot of folks out there that they're in need of mechanics, they're in need of bus aides, certainly drivers. You know, there are apprenticeships that people talked about in the chat that they've done, and they've identified some of their students with special needs who have gone on to become employees of the transportation department. So, you know, really, you know, taking, not just looking at the student with disabilities, but looking at their entire experience and how this can help shape their lives going forward.
Yeah, she touched on one interesting point that jumped out at me, is just talking about like the helicopter parents, right? The parents being overly protective and not allowing the children to live their best life, maybe, right? She talked about shopping as an example, where she went shopping when she was, you know, younger, maybe 7, and she was nonverbal. I think she mentioned up until about 4 years old. But, you know, there are children on the spectrum that haven't been shopping out until they were 16 years old or older. And those life experiences impact them and can affect them. And so she also talked about video games. You know, a kid could be a coding genius in JavaScript. Like, she made a recommendation to someone, hey, that kid should get exposed to JavaScript, or, you know, don't let them just sit around and play video games all day. They could go down a path and do nothing with it, or they can be a productive member of society. So hitting on the trades is one interesting thing. You know, what really popped out to me is, hey, is that an opportunity for transportation to tap into developing maybe some trade-based training for that mechanic shortage? Could they be working with the school to bring in those children and really teach them that there might be something bigger there, Ryan, that I heard. And I was just kind of reading between the lines. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, no, I just was talking about it. That there are a lot of attendees. We're talking about apprenticeship programs that they run, and they have run for years, and that's something that I don't think we talk enough about. We definitely talk about the daily grind, and especially COVID has taken over the entire conversation this year. But there is a lot that school districts and school bus contractors do and can do going forward. And I think it comes back to developing those relationships. Temple talked a lot about working with parents. And certainly she talked about the helicopter parents, and, but there's room for transportation to lean in there and help, affect the conversation. We hear a lot from a lot of leaders on the national level in this industry talking about school transportation infusing themselves into these larger conversations. Again, education, the extension of the classroom, and also working with parents, and to really, take that proactive role in, especially for students with special needs, from that whole life training aspect, and certainly, working in the school bus garage in high school, or maybe some kind of bus aid mentorship program that school districts are doing or could do, could help solve a lot of the challenges that some of these students have, in thinking what's the next chapter of their life going to be once they age out of the school district at age 21 or whatever it is, 18. So a lot of opportunities, I think, for student transporters. And that's what I gleaned from a lot of the attendee feedback, hearing not only Temple's story, but her insights. Again, she's got such a brilliant mind, and really, bringing some great suggestions to the forefront.
Yeah, wonderful. And then Ryan, I think we might have a few speakers or a speaker joining us on the
Yes, we
podcast today.
do.
Do we want to bring her on? Where is she at?
Definitely. Alex Robinson,
Hey.
tenured faculty
Hi there. How are
member.
you?
How you doing? Thanks so much for joining us today. So Alex, she obviously is one of our tenured faculty members, as I mentioned, and one of the go-to people in my Rolodex, to really not only special needs, but student transportation in general. That he's one of my clearinghouses, and so she along with Sue Trump, who's our other active tenured faculty member, do so much work on this conference, and really a lot of things that STN does. So, Alex, thanks for joining us. What were some of the things that jumped out to you today? I know you were able to jump into that last session that Tony mentioned, that Patrick Mulick, Trina Morris, and Gloria Corsino were in. What were some of the things that jumped out to you today?
Well, first of all, I'm so incredibly amazed at being able to hear Temple live this morning, but also very, very proud of my friend and parent advocate, Gloria Corsino. And Katrina and Patrick was an excellent session. I saw lots of people saying it was one of the best sessions they've ever heard, just because getting that information directly from the parent, talking about how communicating change is so important, and making sure that things aren't done in a vacuum, that the departments are talking to each other. But just some really great insight that, we always talk about, if it's, we call them helicopter parents, but as parents ourselves, at least the three of us, we know that we'd be flying that helicopter too. So I think it's important for our teams to remember that we've always said it doesn't matter if the child is 5 or 25 or 5 pounds or 250 pounds, they're still somebody's baby, and we have to remember that what we do can make or break their day in school. So I thought the last session, I think, was probably one of the best sessions I've been in.
Well,
So
well, and you hit on it, empathy. We have a session coming up on Wednesday with Fred Dolker from Dean Transportation, where he's going to be sharing some empathy training that actually Dean Transportation, one of the largest special needs transporter in Michigan, gives their drivers and their aides. But it was also came up during Temple's session talking about empathy, and it just seems to be the word of the month, Tony. Empathy was a lot of what we discussed, what Taylor Hannon, our associate editor, discussed with Todd Duncan, our transportation director of the year, empathy. And being able to walk a mile, kind of that proverb, walking a mile in someone else's shoes. And Alex, that's really what you're talking about. I mean, so many of us are parents. So many of us have students or children with disabilities as well. So in Todd Watkins' case, there in Montgomery County, Maryland, our cover boy for November, he has his oldest son has a genetic disorder that presents itself similar to autism. It's not on the spectrum, but a lot of similarities there. So he's able to really show empathy both for his drivers and his staff, because he has been driving a school bus for decades, and that's how he's come up, but then also to the parents as well.
I think honestly too, though, sometimes it makes me sad that we actually have to teach empathy, so in this day and age, we've gotten so caught up sometimes with everything that's going on around us and all the changing information because of COVID and getting our jobs done. And we know in transportation we probably are the hardest working department, but we shouldn't have to teach it. I think that's the problem, or the challenge that I see, is that we forget. We need to take a step back. I think it was Katrina who said it. Give each other some grace and actually remember that even if we're not parents, we're aunts or uncles or godparents or sisters or brothers. We really have to remember that people aren't asking for the world. They're asking education and consistency for their children. But we get so caught up in everything else that I think we forget. And we also have to remember, and I think we talked about it a little bit in the session that we did today on the COVID lessons learned, is that it's a different process for different kids, so what works for this child isn't going to work for the next child. So you have to have, we always talk about that toolbox that drivers and attendants have to have. They really have to have kind of a bag of tricks, and it's trial and error. And Temple said that too. It might work, and it might work today, and then tomorrow it doesn't work anymore. I think Gloria mentioned having a bell for in order to time how long either a child stims, or before they go into a breakdown, or have a temper tantrum, or how many of us as adults, how many of us as transportation professionals, we need that bell. We need a bell to say, okay, we've given ourselves 5-10 minutes to go a little crazy, and now we need to get back to work. But anyway, there's a lot of things changing in the world. So I think as long as we know that it's okay if we make mistakes, with trial and error, and just try it again the next day.
Exactly. And something Temple said too, a lot of these kids, they might have something triggers them, right? And instead of just having them endure it, you be proactive. And if they're, I think she mentioned in the example of like a school bell, have the student with autism actually initiate the bell to get used to it. I know my own daughter, she's not on the spectrum, but she's always hated loud noises. And when you go into a restaurant and there's the air dryer for your hands, she's always like, or a fire truck drives down the street, and she really hates that. So that gave me my own ideas for my own daughter of things that I can do to give her control, because it's about empowering. It's empathy, yes, and I get your point that it's sad that we have to teach that, but you're absolutely right that we get so busy that we need reminders. We all need reminders to be more empathetic, and that's both us as leaders, transportation directors, editors, bus drivers, everyone. So, and real quickly, I know we have another guest we got to get to, but real quickly, you mentioned that you were on the lessons learned from COVID-19. Real quickly, kind of what was, maybe something that jumped out at you with that conversation with Sue Shoe-Trump, Carlos Chicas, and Bill Wen from Orange County Public Schools in Florida?
I think definitely communication, making sure that if you have a district website dashboard, because the information is changing so quickly, just to make sure you're communicating those changes effectively to the parents and to your communities. Also, to work closely with your colleagues, task forces, even regionally. Maybe it's not something that you were able to glean from a national task force, but maybe you were able to get together with some other neighboring school districts in order to come up with some ideas. And also, anything from staggered bell time, staggered scheduling, and then Sue and I were talking a little bit about one size again doesn't fit all because of some of the chemicals and disinfectants and things. We don't want to make sure we're not breaking down any of those, manufacturers the good barriers, materials on seat belts and securement systems. We need to be very, very careful on some of the products we're using to clean it, to make sure it doesn't render any of our manufacturer's warranties inoperable. So in a nutshell, that's what we talked about.
Okay. Great. Thanks so much, Alex. Really appreciate it. So I know we do have another guest, Tony, here that we got to bring on. Alex is going to exit and go get ready in our happy hour that is going to be starting here momentarily. We're going to push back the official start date a little bit just so we can get Antonio Civitella from TransFinder on. But everyone head over there. We're going to do a happy hour every day to wrap things up, where it's an opportunity to just an informal opportunity to kind of go in there. The speakers have all been invited there. Sue Trump and Alex Robinson will be there just to answer your questions, get caught up, see old friends, share and commune. So again, thanks, Alex and Tony.
Thanks, Alex. You know what? I also want to recognize one of our sponsors today, Zonar. This tech tip is brought to you by Zonar, a leader in smart fleet management. For students with special needs, buses are running as usual, even during this pandemic, and everybody on board needs to go that extra mile to protect them. Enhance your safety strategies with modern fleet technology from Zonar. Ensure sanitization protocols are followed. Track ridership to support contact tracing and locate buses with precision for accurate parent communications. Stop by the Zonar virtual booth at the TSD Virtual Conference or go to zonarsystems.com/protect to learn more. Want to bring up our next guest, Antonio Civitella, President, CEO of TransFinder. Tony is going to be joining us tomorrow for a product showcase from TransFinder, and want to bring him on and welcome him. Tony, glad to have you.
Hello, everybody. Great seeing you. Hello, Alex.
Wonderful to have you.
You want to give us? Right?
Yeah, we hear you good. You want to give us a little preview of what your conversation tomorrow is going to look like? I know TransFinder's got a lot of new things, and specifically some things that can help with special needs, as well as just the daily rigmarole of transporting kids.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm always so impressed that we're talking about having these trade shows and meeting people, and here we are meeting people in the luxury of our safe environment. I'm here at home, so it's so great that we're able to adapt technology. So I'm proud of you guys. We're able to pull off another great event. And guys, I thank you for the insight, and Alex, it was great hearing your point of view. So we understand routing. That's what we're good at. We've been doing this for 32 years. And we'll talk about empathy. I want to actually emphasize a little bit about that. As a technology company, we are helping our clients really deal with how to route special needs students. But, TransFinder employees, they're parents too. So there's really the advantage of how do we want to be treated as parents. So those are things that always come about. How do we develop a software product that really meets our clients' needs, but really it's going to help make the parents happy too, because we're parents also. So that's something that we always think about. We'll be showcasing our latest product that we released at the beginning of this year. It's called Route Finder Plus. It's our latest product. It's our routing software, which is full optimization. And really the key to this, it's all when you're talking about curbside pickup, that's critical. When you have students really special needs routes, There are kids scattered throughout the area, multiple counties for some of you guys. And so, how do you know how to approach that student's house to make sure that they're not going to cross the road? And so those are the type of algorithms that we've incorporated in our latest product to make sure that it's called the approach. And how do you approach that stop? How does the vehicle approach it? And so those type of things are very important. Again, I don't want to give you all the details. Hopefully, some of you guys will show up and listen to what we have to offer. But those are an important aspect. If we're talking about especially disabled students that are physically disabled, they can't walk to a bus stop. They're maybe in a wheelchair, or some other things. Very important that they're not going to be crossing the street. And also we'll talk about our parent app and how they themselves could actually use our parent app and see where the bus is located, really find the bus on a map and see it coming along. And those are things that we talked about for years. And it's part of the empathy. And I don't want to keep using that word, but it really is that. Think about this. In the general ed, we don't think about that. We create these stops that maybe half a dozen kids go to it, and they're running to get to the bus stop and so forth. But it doesn't work this way, and especially in these type of routing, we need to be precise. The estimating of time has to be just there, and it's a domino effect. If we run late on one stop, 5 minutes, they start keep adding up. And it's the experience. Think about this, right? The experience, what happens to a student is on a bus and it's longer and longer. That student might be frustrated, but who's going to be frustrated just as much and maybe even more? It's those helicopter parents. They're the ones going to get really mad. Like, what's up? Why can't you pull this off? I mean, this is where parents really don't know the details that we all go through. They don't know it. They just want service. Just get it done. And so this is where our routing software really goes a long way to make sure that we serve our clients' needs, to make sure that the needs to route these kids really safe but efficient. And remember, a route that could take an hour, maybe you're only transporting 4 or 5 kids. We all know those things. They're the most expensive routes out there. And so we're trying to figure out how to make it as safe as possible and also try to be efficient. So a lot of good things. So please come to our session tomorrow, and we'll talk a lot about how this new product helps really across the board from a smaller size school district to a very large, and really from the regular routes, the general ed routes, to really the special needs. I think those are be very important.
Yeah, so Tony's session with TransFinder is tomorrow, November 10th from 8:30 to 8:45. It is a 15-minute product showcase, so make sure you be there. Mark it on your calendar. He'd love to see you along with his team over at their virtual booth. Tony, thanks so much for jumping on. It was great seeing you. We'll see you tomorrow at your presentation. We're also going to have a bit of a happy hour with our tenured faculty and speaker corps here directly after the podcast, so please pop over and join us for that. It's going to be a really great time. Just want to, thank everybody who came today for TSD Virtual. It was just an amazing day. Really thought that we kicked it off right. Special thanks, Ryan and the STN team, for really going above and beyond to create something special. We've been just turned upside down. I keep using it. It's like transportation twister, right? Your hands on red, your foot's on green, you're twisting every direction. You're not going in a straight line anymore. I think that's transportation every day, but in this case, it's even crazier with COVID. So hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel, Ryan. Hopefully, maybe we're starting to see a glimmer of light.
Hoping so. Well, we have some good news here. We have a couple winners to announce real quickly before we move over to our happy hour. So we've been saying, as much as you can engage, that's what this is for. We can't do it in person, but here's your opportunity to come on screen, share, talk, ask questions, chat, network with folks. So our session chat winner for today, Emily Lepore, Special Needs Coordinator at Prince William Public Schools.
Yay.
So, Emily, congratulations. And
good job.
The other session chat winner, good friend Kayla Hankins-Siefkin, Special Education Transportation Manager at Bemidji area schools in
Yay.
Minnesota. And
Thanks
the
for
booth
engaging, guys.
the booth chat goes to, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Yema Dros, lead area manager at Alachua County Public Schools. So Emily, Kayla, and Yema, congratulations, and we'll have more winners tomorrow.
We'll reach out, get you guys those $100 Amazon gift cards. Want to reward you guys for participating in our chats. It is really imperative that everybody engage with each other and share information. It is vital to the success of our virtual conference. So we greatly thank you. The School Transportation Nation is a podcast you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can go to the stnonline.com website and find us there under multimedia, or go to stnpodcast.com. Special thanks to Transfinder and Zonar for being our podcast sponsors, as well as special thanks to REI, Q Straight Sherlock for being diamond sponsors of the TSD Virtual Conference. We look forward to seeing you on day 2 and day 3, November 10th and 11th. Have a great time and be safe out there, School Transportation Nation.
Head over to Happy Hour, folks. We're waiting for you. Have a
See
good
you
day.
there.
Stronger than